Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight. While we're still waiting for attendees to log in, I just want to take a few minutes to introduce myself and the rest of the staff that are with us tonight, making sure that this webinar is possible. My name is Stephanie Petch, and I'm an Assistant Director in the Office of Financial Aid at Eastern Michigan University. I will be your moderator tonight, so you won't hear too much from me, just this beginning and the ending. I have Leanne Denja, who will be doing the majority of the presentation. She's a senior financial aid advisor at Eastern, and she's going to be presenting along with Ashley Keena. Ashley is an admissions advisor from the Office of Admissions. We also have Bill Casidlo. He's a financial aid advisor, and you're going to hear from him in a little bit, but he's routing all of your questions to our staff of advisors that are waiting to answer them. I have my entire staff of advisors on hand. On the back end, we have Jen J, who's a senior financial aid advisor, David, Andy, Natalie, who are financial aid advisors in the Office of Financial Aid, and then we also have Kristen and Tierney, who are our service EMU advisors. So I would just like to thank them, the entire staff, for their eagerness to participate tonight. We still do have people signing in, but I think they can probably catch up as they log on. But the purpose of this webinar is to inform students and families of their options regarding financial aid for the 2021 school year. We will specifically be focusing on a process called a special circumstance due to a loss of income appeal. So I know it's like a long word, long appeal, but because we in the financial aid office like to make acronyms out of everything, we simply just call this an LOI appeal, like a loss of income appeal. Per federal regulations, schools are allowed to reevaluate a family's financial situation due to a significant change of income from when they originally filed the FAFSA, so like when you originally filed in October, to now. So we're allowed to look at the differences and adjust a family's expected family contribution. Based on our evaluation, our school's evaluation of LOI appeals, a significant change of income would impact a student's financial aid if that change is about 20%. So if you have a change of income that's about 20% compared to what you have originally on the FAFSA to now, it would definitely be worth doing an LOI appeal with your school. This does not mean that you should not or cannot file an appeal for a change of 10%. Doesn't mean that. You're more than welcome to file an appeal even for a 10% change. But the ultimate goal of the LOI appeal is to lower the expected family contribution so that a student would be eligible for a Pell Grant or need-based aid, or if the student is already Pell eligible, it's to lower the EFC even more so that they're eligible for a larger Pell Grant. So that's the main goal of an LOI appeal. When appeals are processed, schools calculate a new EFC based on the information that is requested by the school and supplied by the families. Schools do have to base the new income off of a 12-month period. That 12-month period could be 2019. It could be March of 2019 to March of 2020. And I just state that because I want to stress the importance of submitting all the documentation that schools ask for. Some schools are going to ask, for more information than others. So make sure that when you fill out the appeal with the school, that you're looking at the information that they're requesting and you supply what they're asking for. Since the goal is to either get a Pell Grant or a larger Pell Grant, those families that already have a 0 EFC should not file an LOI appeal. You are already receiving the maximum amount of federal aid, and we can't adjust your EFC any lower. So it would be really a worthless effort for you to submit all of the information and for us to pull it in because we can't make your EFC any lower. So just remember that the 2021 FAFSA is based off of 2018 income. There are some families that will want to keep that 2018 income. Some families, it would be better if we use 2019 income. And some families would benefit by using a 12-month time period, like the March to March income. I'm going to turn this presentation over to Leanne, and she's going to go through about five different scenarios. And we feel like her going over the scenarios will work best for you to figure out which one works for you. It will help you understand the process a little bit better and what it might look like when you go to submit the information. So Leanne, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you to you and Ashley for the rest of the presentation.
Thanks, Steph. You guys can hear me, right? Can I just get confirmation?
I'll confirm. Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you. Okay, so Steph really outlaid the loss of income or special circumstances as it applies to loss of income process. I will be doing a little bit of repeat if I can see that, a good number of attendees have joined in. So I apologize to those of you who have been here from the beginning. If you're like, Stephanie already told us that. But I want to go through these scenarios, and I want to draw your attention to the fact that in your little panel for the GoToWebinar, you have the ability to ask questions. And we encourage you to do that. And you can do that at any time during the presentation. When you ask those questions, it might make more sense to wait and kind of get some ideas of situations that have been presented, or you might want to go ahead and just ask them now. You might get a private answer where an advisor just responds only to you. But as Steph mentioned, in case you're coming into this a little bit late, Bill will be sending some of the questions out at the end of this presentation. And I'll be answering them sort of live so that everybody can kind of get a sense of what the answer to those questions that might apply to more than one person might be. So without further ado, let's get into this presentation. So scenario number one, and again, we're kind of going to lay out 5 sort of general scenarios specifically as they relate to the COVID-19 or coronavirus situation, just because we know that that might be really timely information for a lot of you. So during the pandemic, my parents maintained employment. Either they were considered essential or they were able to telecommute or remote work from home. And so there really hasn't been much substantial change to their income. And so in that situation, that might be, if you were listening from the beginning, one of those situations that Stephanie referenced that income reduction has been maybe 20% or less. And so it's not that you've not had any financial impact, or maybe there's been none, but it might not make sense to go through the special circumstances review. At the same time, we do recognize that this is affecting everyone. And there's a lot of changes that are happening and the situation's very fluid. And so we wanted to still present this because for some of you, this might be an option, and you might be families that are considering, well, I was thinking about going to school far away, but now I might be going a little bit closer to home. And what does that mean for me? So there might be not a lot of impact on your financial eligibility at one school per se, but number one, we want to clarify that situation could change moving forward. The federal government may decide, to change some options for aid, and we'll certainly communicate that should that become the case. And then if you're in this scenario one, where really you haven't experienced much income impact, but maybe you're considering a change of where you're going to go to school, I just want to say that that's something that we're going to cover in a future scenario. So kind of just hang tight if that's the situation that you're looking at. But definitely, if anything changes with your financial aid eligibility in light of the COVID-19 situation, you can count on your financial aid office communicating that information to you. Certainly if you're at Eastern, but I would guess if you're at any institution. So scenario 2 might be where we find ourselves more in that 0 to 20% range in terms of change to income. So during the stay-at-home orders, maybe one or both of my parents were laid off or furloughed as an unpaid worker for a period of time. And it's not that we don't expect that they'll be able to go back to work, or maybe they actually are even back to work, but there's been some slight reduction to income. And so for a lot of you, we would consider that maybe a low to moderate annual impact. And that might be something where you would consider a special circumstances appeal due to loss of income, or as Steph abbreviated it for us, the LOI process, the loss of income process. So again, your 2021 FAFSA is based on 2018 income. So number one, that's already 2 years ago. And so it may be that your income even changed in 2019, or certainly in this particular scenario that your family's income may have changed in 2020. So we would encourage folks in this situation or this scenario, even though they may not have had a substantial loss of income, to still maybe go through that process. And again, if you're joining us late, or even if you've been here the whole time, I apologize for any repetitive information, but you can go ahead and ask questions. In the right-hand side, you should have a panel where you have that option, and we'll be answering those throughout the presentation. But in this scenario number 2, there might be enough of a change where, again, like Stephanie suggested, maybe you're already Pell eligible, but you might have a little bit more Pell eligibility. Or maybe you're very close to Pell eligibility, and so you want to see if this income is enough to maybe put you into that Pell Grant eligibility situation. So again, we encourage you to, at Eastern, our loss of income, our LOI, or special circumstances appeal, I'll just use all the terminology so you have it, is available on our website now for 2021. And there's a checklist of items that have to be submitted, and it's pretty thorough. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's a lot of documentation. We won't be asking, for a thumbprint or your blood or your firstborn child, but we are going to stop just short of that. So you'll have to submit 2018 income information. You'll have to submit 2019 information, assuming that you did file taxes in 2019 and aren't taking advantage of that extension that's been made available. Basically, the more information that you can provide us, the better. So everything that's on the checklist, and if you really strongly feel that something else might be relevant, you would want to submit that as well. So that's a little bit about like a second scenario that folks might be experiencing. For scenario number 3, this might be something more significant. So perhaps at the start of the crisis, somebody's parent had a business that had to shutter its doors. And it was for a long enough period of time that business might be closed now, or they might not have a job now. Or maybe another parent has been going to work, but might not, or they were off for a period of time, even though they're able to kick in and work remotely now. And so that situation, we would consider it a moderate to high impact on a family's annual income. And we would definitely advise a family or a student in this situation to go through that special circumstances appeal or LOI or loss of income process. And again, this slide just kind of gets a little bit more into the details of like everything that's required, but it's all laid out clearly at EMU, and I would guess at most other schools, exactly what needs to be submitted. So things like a last pay stub for 2020, if such a thing exists. Again, 2019 federal tax return, tax transcript, or W-2s, if that's something that was submitted before that traditional April 15th deadline. Any unemployment information. So a lot of folks might be filing for unemployment, and what is, that limited amount of income that's coming in. I do want to clarify here that there are questions on the FAFSA that ask about like if a family qualifies for SNAP or other types of income, but that isn't something that needs to be submitted. So anything that you might be receiving in the way of food stamps or SNAP isn't something that's going to be counting against you, but it's helpful information for us to have because this bullet, the next bullet, this detailed letter explaining the situation with the dates, the circumstances, etc., is really helpful for us. We have a laundry list of documents that we're going to be quote unquote required to get for federal purposes in case we were ever audited for changing a person's FAFSA. But that detailed letter from you that sort of the family, whether that's the parent or the student, compiling and composing that message really helps us kind of put all of those pieces of the puzzle together. So all of those items on the checklist are required, but this letter that you would write, kind of providing us a narrative of the situation with, again, dates and specific circumstances really helps us put all of those pieces of the puzzle together the best to get the best outcome for you. Again, if folks are kind of coming into this late, if you have a 0 EFC, this is the type of process that wouldn't be of much benefit to you other than the fact that you'd have all your paperwork collected in a nice tidy pile. We can't make an expected family contribution or an EFC, which is the number that the FAFSA determines, any lower than a 0. But that doesn't mean that you couldn't, let our office know. You could certainly reach out to us and let us know, but it isn't something that at this point might result in any kind of additional aid. The dependent verification worksheet is part of the loss of income or special circumstances, LOI, process. And I just want to clarify that Eastern has online forms. And so at EMU, that would be something that a student would start submitting, and they would enter all of the pertinent information that they're required to. And then they enter an email for a parent, and then that form is pushed out via that email address to a parent to then sign and submit. And this might be, for some of you, something you've already submitted. And we would just like to clarify that if you're going through the special circumstances appeal process, it isn't necessary to submit another one of these. If we already have your 2018 taxes, if we already have your dependent verification worksheet because you've been selected for verification, you don't have to resubmit that. You would just submit the other documents that are on the checklist. And again, if Eastern isn't the school that you've definitively chosen and you're maybe considering some other options, you definitely want to go to any school's website to see what is it that they ask for specifically, because different schools may handle the appeals in a different way. They might ask for slightly different information, and it is important, especially if you're kind of considering 2 different schools, to know that this is an individual process at each school. So this is something that if you were weighing 2 options, and this could maybe make the impact of your decision, that that you have to submit that in 2 different ways. Eastern might change your FAFSA in a different way that U of M would, or Washtenaw would, or Western would, or Central would, and that's okay. That's allowable, but it's important that you get all of those documents to every particular individual school. So, okay, I feel like I've been talking a lot, but hopefully you're hanging in here with me. Scenario 4. This might be kind of the worst case scenario, but perhaps a parent has been hospitalized. Maybe they've even passed away from coronavirus or something related to that. And that was the main income for your family. And certainly in that situation, that's going to be a high impact on annual income. And we definitely, even though it's a lot of paperwork and it's a hard and difficult time, it is something that we have to have on file, but we'll do everything that we can to make that as easy as possible for folks who might find themselves in this situation. Another thing to consider is that for some students or families that might be in a separated situation, it may very well be that the parent that's been compromised either by this virus or physically, or maybe that's the person that lost their job. If you don't have another biological parent in the picture, that you might qualify for dependency status override or dependency student override, as we call it at EMU, if that parent has lost their life. And so that's kind of a second. It's a special circumstances appeal. It would fall under that umbrella, but it's a different kind of appeal. At Eastern, we abbreviate that as a DSO appeal. But if you have lost your primary parent, and you either don't have any contact with your other biological parent, or it's been very limited in your lifetime, that's a different kind of appeal that we would definitely want you to make us aware of, so that we could help you navigate that process, because obviously that's going to be a real significant situation for you. Okay, so scenario number 5 might be something that applies to everybody in some way, shape, or form. So before this pandemic, maybe we didn't think that we needed financial aid, or there was certain financial aid that we didn't think we would need, but now we might. And my family needs, we need to find some other kind of alternatives. Maybe you had some money set aside for college, but now that needs to go towards paying bills or something like that, or making up for income that's been lost. And again, special circumstances still an option, but it's not too late to submit a free application for federal student aid, or what we in financial aid call a FAFSA. So you can absolutely still submit a 2021 FAFSA. I do want to let folks know that if you are going out there for the very first time, because you've never submitted one before, you're going to find that there are 2 available. There's the 2019-20, which is for this school year. So if you were thinking about starting a school in the summer, that might be something that you need to submit. But if you're looking at just starting in fall, then you'd be looking at that 2021 FAFSA. That's what you would want to get submitted for that upcoming school year. And again, just to backtrack a little bit in these different scenarios that we talked about, Stephanie mentioned it in her introduction, and I talked about it a little, but being Pell Grant eligible. So that's a federal grant program. And it might be that your parents said to you, well, don't fill out a FAFSA because we're not going to qualify for anything because you didn't intend on taking out student loans. The threshold for Pell Grant eligibility in 2021 is an EFC of 5711, so 5711. So if you were really close to that number, again, it might really behoove you, if there's even been what seems like a small change in income, to submit a special circumstances appeal that might possibly knock you under that number. The other thing to kind of know at Eastern is that if you qualify for EFOS, which is the Education First Opportunity Scholarship, that's a scholarship that works with your Pell Grant. So as your Pell Grant goes up, your EFOS goes down, or vice versa. If your Pell Grant were to go down, your EFOS would increase as long as you maintained Pell Grant eligibility. So that might be another scenario where if you're an EFOS eligible student, it's kind of the equivalent of being an 0 EFC, where it might not make sense to do a special circumstances appeal. And I apologize, I kind of got a little muddied on this scenario 5, sort of backtracking to that. But I did just kind of want to mention that. So if you've never done a FAFSA, it's not too late. It's FAFSA.gov. You can also download the Federal Student Aid app on your phones. And then that's something where a student can enter their portion of the information, and then a parent can separately on their own smartphone device enter their own information. And again, that base year is going to be 2018. And so the reason I kind of muddied the waters here is that maybe you didn't fill out that FAFSA because you knew you weren't going to have a certain level of eligibility for aid. But now that you're looking at 2020, the ball game has changed. And so the first step is still going to be filing that FAFSA. You can't do a special circumstances appeal without having a FAFSA on file. So you'd still submit the FAFSA, you'd still use that 2018 income information. It'd take us about 7 to 15 days to get that, or any school, because maybe you're thinking about switching gears now. Maybe you're in one of those situations where things have really changed for your family and it makes more sense to go to a school that's closer to you. Or maybe you're here because you weren't necessarily considering Eastern, but now you are, because that's the closer to home option for you. And if you've already done a FAFSA, but you never had Eastern on it, that's as simple as going into your FAFSA and adding us as a school code. So our school code, it's not on this slide, but you don't necessarily need to know it. You can search for it within the FAFSA, is 002259. So again, the EMU school code is 002259. But don't panic if you didn't get that down. That is something that you can search for within the FAFSA, and you would get that submitted. And then again, if your income has changed, once we have the FAFSA, then at that point you could still consider that special circumstances appeal, where we might make an edit to even something that's been newly submitted. And there's nothing wrong with that. So I have talked a lot, and I feel like it would be good for you to have a nice break from my voice. So I am going to turn it over to Ashley. Before I do that, I just want to again mention that's kind of the end of our scenarios. So if there are questions that you've had that have not come up, definitely go ahead and start typing those in now. But I'm going to turn it over to Ashley so you can hear a new, different voice, and hear a little bit about what to do next in terms of admission and orientation.
Well, perfect. Thank you, Leanne. So just making sure you can hear me, correct?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So hello, everyone. My name is Ashley Keena. I'm an admissions advisor here at Eastern. Some of you probably watched the webinar I did a couple weeks ago with admissions next steps. So there's just some things that we want to touch base with and make sure you're still on the right track to start in fall. So first off, we want you to activate your student account. This is your Eastern account. It will let you look at that financial aid information. You can view more of your personalized data within your own account, and then this is going to help move you forward within this admission process. So once you activate your student account, you're going to have to do a security platform that we have. It's called Duo Security, and it's just another step process in making sure that everything you have is secure and safe and no one's going to steal that data from you. So once you do that, we want you to sign up for Fast Track Orientation. So Fast Track Orientation usually would be where you come on campus, you sign up for classes with an academic advisor. There's an optional tour of campus and just kind of last minute sessions, information sessions for you and your parents. So we know with everything going on, it's a little different this year. So we are offering online fast track orientation options. So instead of coming on campus, you will schedule your classes over the phone with an academic advisor. And you can actually choose that virtual option when you go to choose a date for fast track orientation. And then you would just send a picture in for your student ID instead of having it being taken in person. So that's kind of what fast track is looking at right now. So you'll register those classes over the phone with the academic advisor. And then also we just want to mention that housing has opened. So you can go on the housing website, apply today, and then they could start pairing you with some potential roommates. So that's basically all I have on the admission side, just catching you up, make sure you're on the right track. If you have any questions, please feel free to get a hold of us. And we would be more than happy to help you. and our number is 734-487-6453. And again, if you just reach out, especially in this question tab right here, I would be happy to help you with all those next steps.
Okay, thanks, Ashley. Leanne, if you just want to advance the slide to the very last one for the webinar, that has the Office of Financial Aid information, so our email address and our telephone number. And before I turn it over to Bill, if some of you can see, me and technology and me just really don't mix that well. It takes me a little while to figure things out. So I was responding to a message and I sent it to the entire audience. So if you see over in this chat box some message that you're like, what is she talking about? That was actually I probably should have. I think I was supposed to send it to an individual person, but I don't know how technology works yet. So it went to everyone, but it's nothing bad. It was just about the audience and how I think most of you are probably incoming freshmen. And that's the reason, like, that's who we were kind of gearing this webinar to, because once you've been through this, if you've been through this process once, you kind of remember it, and you do it once you're in school. You hear about things through the grapevine and all that stuff. So that's what that message is over there on the side in the chat. I apologize for that. It's nothing bad, but just to explain myself a little bit. So we'll go to Bill. Bill, if you have any questions that people have submitted that Leanne can answer, do you have anything?
You know what? I didn't get anything. I think everyone was kind of wrapped up in the content of her stuff. But I just want to remind everyone that when we do these special circumstance appeals, that we really do try to benefit you as much as possible as far as reducing your expected family contribution. And we understand that, like, with this epidemic, the pandemic and everything, that we're going to do our best to make sure that we benefit you as much as possible as far as what we can award you with further financial aid. So I didn't get anything. We still have 10 attendees in the room. If you guys have anything, it's not too late to ask a question. If there's anyone that has any advisors that want to, throw in.
I'm just going to jump in. I'm going to jump in, Bill, if I can.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Ashley just mentioned the virtual fast track, so that online process of orientation. If you've already participated in that, you would know that as part of that process, there's a Money Matters presentation, which is a lot more, I would say, like down the staircase from what this presentation has been about. So that's a lot more of the general financial aid information, not necessarily specific to these different scenarios or experiences you might be having, which is what this webinar was intended to cover. But if you hopped on because you're like, well, I just have some general questions, part of that fast track virtual experience will be the option and opportunity to listen to our Money Matters presentation, as well as a quick video on Service EMU, which are going to both be really helpful to you to just kind of get like that ground level understanding of financial aid, and not so much necessarily special circumstances appeal, but kind of like what steps come before that, or alongside of that, as the case may be. So I just wanted to mention that to those of you who have maybe not signed up for that virtual fast track. As far as I know, doing a virtual fast track is not going to preclude you, should we at any point in the summer be able to do an online orientation, an in-person orientation, experience that. So that might be a really good thing to do right now. And other than registering, short of actually registering for classes, that fast track experience is a sort of no cost thing for students to do. So once you register, you are on the hook, as it goes for tuition eventually. But even if you changed your mind at any point after registering for classes, worst case scenario is you have a non-refundable registration fee, which is probably going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $50, $60 for the 2021 school year. So I just really encourage you to kind of follow up on Ashley's next steps if it's not something you've already done. And kind of go through that online orientation process, because that'll give you a lot of really good information and insight into, you know, what to expect as well.
One more thing. Thank you for pointing that out. I also do want to add that we do have online virtual options for you all. So you can go on there, do a virtual tour of campus. You can chat to some of our tour guides. They can answer any questions you have about campus living, campus life. So we have lots of options on that online aspect stuff, because we know you can't make it to campus right now. So we want you to be able to see as much as you can while you're staying at home.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. And I do just want to reiterate, and I know we've said it a couple times, that loss of income appeals or special circumstances are not just for Eastern. Every school has this process. So whether you're attending state or central or Western or U of M, they have this process. And the federal government they're encouraging schools to make sure that this process is known to their families, especially right now. So if you're attending a different school other than Eastern, just make sure that you look, if you fall under one of those scenarios, make sure that you contact the financial aid office and ask them. Or you look on their website to see, if you look up a special circumstance appeal or a loss of income appeal, look up and see what is required, what they want you to turn in based on your scenario. Just know that it's not only Eastern. We just want to make sure that you have that information. For those of you that are left in the webinar, we just want to make sure that you have the information and that you have the knowledge about the process, so that you can move forward on your end and maybe get a better financial aid package because of your new income information. Bill, is there anything yet? If not, we can call it quits.
I think that's about it. I don't think anyone has any questions, but we just do want to just say that we're very accessible here at Eastern. So with the email address that you see and the phone number, we are answering calls and emails during this during this work from home thing. And we really hope to see everyone on campus. We don't know what's going to happen, and we hope to share as much information as we have in the most timely manner possible. We really want to see you on campus, and we really hope that you choose to be an EMU Eagle. That's all I have to say. That's my editorial. I'm out.
Okay. Well, thanks for that. Leanne, thank you. Ashley, thank you. And thanks everyone for sticking with us to the end. Again, if you have questions, email us at financial_aid@emich.edu or give us a call. Thanks, and everyone have a good night.